The morning sun spilled over the chapels, white stone walls like warm honey, turning the entire wedding venue into something almost dreamlike. Guests were already beginning to arrive, drifting through the gardens in pastel dresses and expensive suits. Their laughter floated through the air, mingling with the faint music of the string quartet rehearsing at the far end of the hall. And there I stood quietly, near the back of the room, trying to blend in, trying not to be seen. This was my son's wedding day. A day I had dreamed about for years. A day I never imagined I would feel so out of place. My fingers tightened around the small clutch purse I carried. The soft lavender dress I wore had taken me 3 months of saving to buy. Nothing fancy, nothing extravagant, just enough to make me feel like I belonged among the polished crowd. I had spent the morning carefully putting up my hair, touching up the makeup I rarely wore, telling myself, asterisk, asterisk, this is Daniel's big day. Smile, be happy, nothing else matters. Asterisk, asterisk, and yet there was a growing heaviness in my chest I couldn't quite shake. From across the hall I could see my son, my sweet, kind Daniel, laughing nervously with his groomsmen. His dark hair was neatly styled, his tux crisp and perfectly fitted. He looked so handsome, so grown, so ready for a life built with someone he loved. I wished that someone loved him as he deserved. Victoria Sterling, his bride-to-be, even thinking her name sent a subtle sting through me. I didn't dislike her at first, not truly. I wanted to love her for Daniel's sake. I wanted to believe she would be the daughter-in-law I would cherish, someone who would embrace our little family, someone who would see Daniel the way I saw him. But from the very beginning, Victoria made it painfully clear. She didn't like me. She didn't want me around. She tolerated me only because Daniel insisted. Every dinner invitation I extended was met with an excuse. Every attempt at conversation ended with her glancing at her phone, bored, dismissive. Every compliment I offered was brushed away with a polite smile that didn't reach her eyes. Still, I told myself she was just nervous. Maybe she struggled with closeness. Maybe she felt intimidated meeting someone who raised Daniel alone. I tried to understand. I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt. But today felt different. Today there was a chill in the air, one that followed me the moment I stepped into the venue. Victoria's friends whispered when I walked by. Her mother stared at me with thinly veiled disapproval, as if I were a stain on her perfect wedding fabric. It didn't help that their side of the family was wealthy, polished, well-connected, and I was a single mother who had worked 3 jobs just to give my kids a decent life. Still, I held my head high. If nothing else, I was proud of the son I raised, proud of the love he found, proud to witness him take this step. My daughter, Lily Daniel's younger sister, ran up to me, breathless from helping the staff arrange decorations. "You okay, Mom?" she asked, her big eyes scanning my face. I forced a smile. "Of course, sweetheart. Just taking it all in." Lily frowned but didn't push. She squeezed my hand before running off again. I watched her go, feeling a small comfort in her presence. At least one person in the room made me feel like I belonged. A moment later, one of the bridesmaids approached me, her heels clicking sharply against the polished floor. "Mrs. Hale," she said, smoothing her dress, "Victoria is looking for you." My heart sank. Victoria never looked for me unless she had something critical to say. And she never softened the blow. Still, I nodded politely. "Thank you, I'll go to her." The walk to the bridal suite felt strangely long. Every step echoed inside my chest. When I reached the door, I hesitated, smoothing the skirt of my dress, checking my hair as if preparing for judgment. Then I knocked lightly. The door swung open almost immediately. Victoria stood there, a vision of beauty, hair curled in cascading waves, makeup flawless, crystal, beaded gown shimmering like frost. But her eyes were sharp. No warmth, "No welcome, come in," she said flatly. The room was full her mother, her bridesmaids, stylists rushing around with brushes and pins. All conversation stopped the moment I entered, as if I had brought in a cold draught. Victoria turned toward me slowly, her expression unreadable. "I wanted to speak to you before the ceremony," she said. I smiled gently. "Of course. Is everything all right? Do you need something?" Her lips curled not into a smile, but into something like annoyance. "Yes," she said. "I need to make something absolutely clear." The air tightened. Her mother folded her arms. The bridesmaids shifted uneasily. My chest prickled. Victoria stepped closer, lowering her voice, but making sure everyone could still hear. "Today is my wedding. My family is hosting. My guests are here. The last thing I want is any unnecessary awkwardness." I blinked. I don't understand." She exhaled, irritated, as if my confusion were an inconvenience. "You don't fit in here," she said bluntly. "You make people uncomfortable. Daniel only invited you because he felt obligated." A few gasps filled the room. My breath caught, my hands trembled, the floor seemed to tilt slightly beneath me. Victoria wasn't finished. "You're not welcome here," she said, "so please just leave quietly and don't come back." Silence. Not the soft, respectful kind, but the heavy kind, the cruel kind, the kind that makes the walls feel like they're closing in. Something inside me cracked, but something else hardened. I lifted my chin. I looked her straight in the eyes for the first time since meeting her. And I smiled, a calm, steady, heartbreakingly sincere smile. "All right," I said softly, "I'll leave." Her eyes widened a fraction. She hadn't expected it to be so easy. But then I added asterisk asterisk. "But I'll take some others with me." Asterisk asterisk, confusion flashed across her face. I didn't wait for questions. I turned, opened the door, and walked out of the bridal suite with the dignity she thought she could strip from me. The hallway outside the bridal suite was silent as I walked out, my heels tapping softly against the polished floor. I felt the tremble in my hands, the sting behind my eyes, but I refused to let a single tear fall. Not here. Not now, not because of her. I had survived worse things in my life: poverty, heartbreak, loneliness, the constant ache of trying to be both mother and father to my children. What was one wealthy girl's cruelty compared to all that? But the pain wasn't from her words alone. It was from what they meant. Victoria didn't see me as Daniel's mother. She saw me as an embarrassment. And she thought she could erase me from his life with a command. I inhaled shakily and made my way toward the back of the chapel, trying to steady my emotions. Guests were still arriving, taking their seats, chatting excitedly about the ceremony that was moments away. Laughter echoed through the grand hall. The string quartet began a slow, delicate piece. No one knew what had just happened. No one knew I had been told by my son's own bride to disappear. But humiliation is a strange thing. It clings to the skin, to the breath, to the very air around you. The moment I reached the far corner of the room, I saw my daughter, Lily, rushing toward me, her curly red hair bouncing. Her cheeks flushed from running around helping with decorations. "Mom, what took so long?" she asked playfully. "Did the bride need your emergency sewing skills again?" I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Lily's smile faded immediately. "Mom, what's wrong?" Tears threatened again, but I blinked them back. I forced a smile that felt too heavy for my face. "We're leaving," I whispered. Her eyes widened. "What? Why? You haven't even seen the ceremony yet." She told me I wasn't welcome. I said quietly, "Victoria told me to get out, said I didn't belong here." For a moment, Lily just stared at me, frozen, stunned, her lips parted in disbelief. Then, slowly, her expression changed. The shock in her eyes darkened into something sharp, something fierce, something only a daughter can feel when her mother has been wronged. "That spoiled witch," she whispered harshly. "I knew she didn't like you, but this, at her own wedding." "Lily, please." I murmured, "Don't make a scene. Let's just go." "No," she said firmly, slipping her arm through mine. "We'll leave, but we don't leave quietly." Her words echoed the same strength I had used years ago to protect her and Daniel from everything life threw at us. Now she stood, protecting me. As we walked toward the exit, whispers began to follow us. People didn't know what was happening, but they sensed something was wrong. Something significant. And then, Elena, I turned. My parents, Daniel's grandparents, were making their way toward us. My father's cane tapped against the marble floor. "Where are you going, sweetheart?" My mother asked, worry wrinkling her forehead. The words stuck in my throat. It was Lily who spoke. Victoria kicked Mom out. My mother gasped loudly enough for nearby guests to turn. My father's jaw clenched so hard the muscle twitched. "She what?" He growled. "She said Mom isn't welcome." Lily said. She told her to leave right now. The fire in my father's eyes was unmistakable. He turned toward the wedding hall, fury radiating from him. "No," I said quickly, grabbing his arm. "Please, not here, not now. We're just leaving peacefully." My mother looked at me, eyes glistening. "If she doesn't want you here, then she doesn't want us. We're leaving with you." My throat tightened. "Mom, you don't have to. We do," she said simply. "You're not alone." For a moment I felt anchored, supported, wrapped in a love stronger than humiliation. But the humiliation wasn't done with me yet, because when we turned to continue toward the exit, something unexpected happened. Mrs. Hale, wait, two young men, Mark and Jason, Daniel's longtime friends, hurried over. They were supposed to be by Daniel's side, standing with him as groomsmen. But instead, they were breathless, faces flushed with anger. "Is it true?" Mark demanded. "Did Victoria really tell you to leave?" I didn't want to answer. I didn't want this to explode into something bigger, not on Daniel's big day. But Lily spoke up again. She humiliated Mom in front of her bridesmaids, called her an embarrassment. Jason let out a low curse. We knew she was manipulative, but this, Mark looked at me with sadness. "Mrs. Hale, you don't deserve this. Daniel would be devastated. I don't want him hurt," I whispered. "I just want to go." "But we're going with you," Jason said firmly. "If Victoria treats you like that, then we won't stand beside her at the altar." My breath caught. "Please, boys, you don't have to." "We do," Mark said seriously. "Daniel might be blind right now, but he'll see clearly soon enough. And when he does, he'll want to know we stood by you." One by one, more faces turned toward us. A cousin, two neighbors, a family friend, people who had watched Daniel grow up. People who loved our little family, and suddenly a small crowd formed quiet, solemn, yet united. Not one of them asked for details. Not one of them questioned my worth. They simply stood with me. But the humiliation still burned, because with every new person walking toward us, with every guest watching, with every whisper spreading through the hall, I could feel the story unfolding. Groom's mother had been rejected by the bride. Humiliation, but also something else. A trembling earthquake of consequences building under the surface. As I stepped toward the exit, surrounded now by people who cared, something inside me shifted. The humiliation no longer weighed me down. It fueled me, because Victoria had believed she could isolate me. She thought she could single me out. She thought she could push me away quietly, privately, secretly. Instead, she had ignited a storm, and she had no idea what was about to hit her. The heavy wooden doors of St. Helena's Chapel seemed impossibly far away as we began walking toward them. It felt surreal, like watching a movie of my own life from outside my body. The murmurs behind us grew louder with each step, rippling through the hall in waves. A mother leaving her son's wedding, a grandmother and grandfather right behind her, a daughter gripping her mother's arm, and Daniel's groomsmen trailing closely, fury simmering in their eyes. No one had planned a scene, but the scene had formed anyway. The wedding guests were confused at first, turning their heads, whispering, leaning toward one another. Some frowned, some gasped softly. A few looked away, uncomfortable. unable to imagine the ugliness that must have caused this. But others knew. They had seen glimpses of Victoria's coldness, her temper, her sharp tongue, her superiority wrapped in silk and diamonds. They pretended not to notice before. Now they couldn't look away. Lily tightened her grip on my arm. "Mom," she whispered, "don't look back. Just keep walking." And I tried. But just as we reached the middle of the hall, just as the sunlight from the open doors spilled across our feet, a familiar voice called out behind us. "Elena, where are you going?" It was Mrs. Oakley, a neighbor who had known Daniel since he was in kindergarten. She looked puzzled, a small bouquet of roses still clutched in her hand. Before I could respond, Lily stepped forward. "Victoria kicked my mom out," she said in a firm, steady voice. "Said she's an embarrassment." A horrified murmur spread across the room. Mrs. Oakley's expression darkened instantly. Unbelievable. And then, unexpectedly, she set down her bouquet and stood beside us. "My husband and I will go with you," she said simply. Her husband nodded, stepping forward. "No one treats Elena like that." The shock on my face must have been obvious. "Mrs. Oakley, please, you don't have to do that." I whispered. "We do," she said, voice trembling with sympathy. "Daniel is practically our son, too. If his bride doesn't respect you, she doesn't respect any of us." More guests turned. More whispers. Then a cousin of mine approached. "We're leaving, too. This is a disgrace." Then another. And another. It happened slowly at first. One person, then two, but then the movement grew, gaining momentum like a quiet uprising. A family friend from down the street, a neighbor who had driven hours to attend, a co-worker of mine whom I had invited hesitantly. The parents of one of Daniel's childhood friends, aunts, uncles, distant relatives who rarely took sides in anything. They all stood, they all stepped forward. It felt like watching a tide rise behind me, one wave after another joining in solidarity. Victoria's side of the family stared in stunned silence, their perfect posture and polished smiles melting into confusion. On the other end of the hall, the wedding planner looked as though she might faint. Her eyes darted between Victoria inside the bridal suite and the growing exodus unfolding in front of her. But the most heartbreaking sight of all, the one that pierced me deeper than humiliation ever could, was Daniel. He stood near the front pew, ready to take his place at the altar. He was adjusting his tie when he noticed the movement. His smile faded, confusion washing over his features. He looked up fully and saw me. Our eyes locked. His expression changed instantly. "Mom," he mouthed. My breath hitched. The storm arrived all at once. He stepped out of line. "Mom," he called out louder this time, his voice echoing across the hall. Victoria's mother glanced sharply toward him, but Daniel ignored her completely. He took a few steps forward, looking first at me, then at Lily, then at his grandparents, then at the crowd following us. And panic exploded across his face. He rushed forward, but just before he reached us, the doors to the bridal suite slammed open. Every head turned. Victoria stormed out. Her veil was half off, her lipstick smudged, her expression furious enough to silence a room full of people. Her bridesmaids trailed behind her nervously, clearly unsure whether to follow or flee. "What is happening?" Victoria shrieked, her voice cracking with hysteria. The entire chapel froze. Daniel turned to her slowly. "What did you do?" Victoria snapped her gaze toward me, then at the group behind me, almost half the groom's side of the wedding party. Her face drained of color. "Elena," she spat, "you manipulative, don't." Daniel snapped sharply, stepping between us. "Not one more word about my mother." The room gasped. Victoria's mouth fell open. "Your mother?" she hissed. "Your mother is ruining my wedding." Daniel stared at her like he was seeing her for the first time. "No," he said quietly, "you did that." Victoria's eyes darted wildly. "Why are all these people leaving? This is my wedding. They can't just. They're leaving." Daniel interrupted because of how you treated my family. Victoria turned bright red. I told her the truth. She doesn't fit in here. She should have quietly left instead of turning this into a spectacle. Daniel flinched as if she had slapped him, and the entire room felt it. You told my mother, he said slowly, voice shaking with fury, to get out, to leave my wedding. She was making everyone uncomfortable. Victoria shouted desperately. I did what was necessary. No, Daniel said, stepping back, his face pale. You did what was cruel. And in that moment, in that breathless, suspended moment, everyone knew. The wedding was over, or at least it was no longer going the way Victoria planned. She lunged toward Daniel, grabbing his arm. We are getting married today. You promised me. Daniel shook her off. No, he whispered. I'm not promising you anything anymore. The chapel erupted in shocked whispers. Victoria froze, her hand still outstretched. Daniel, what are you saying? He didn't answer. He turned instead and walked toward me. Toward all of us. He stopped right in front of me, eyes shining with heartbreak. Mom, he whispered hoarsely, I'm going with you. That was when Victoria screamed. A raw, broken, hysterical sound that echoed across the chapel walls and shattered whatever dignity she had left. But Daniel didn't turn back. He took my hand, he took Lily's hand, and together we walked out of the wedding that was supposed to bind two families, but instead revealed the truth about one. The cold winter air hit us the moment we stepped outside the chapel, but none of us shivered. Maybe it was the adrenaline, maybe it was heartbreak, or maybe it was relief, finally escaping a situation we didn't fully understand until it exploded in front of us. Behind us, the heavy wooden doors of St. Helena's slammed open again, and Victoria's scream sliced through the air like a blade. Daniel, get back here, stop following her. But Daniel didn't stop. He didn't even look back. His hand was warm around mine as he walked beside me, his breaths coming fast, uneven, trembling. He wasn't a groom anymore. He wasn't the man waiting at the altar. He was simply my son, confused, heartbroken, shaking with anger and disbelief. We reached the bottom of the chapel steps when he finally halted. His grip loosened, then tightened again as he turned toward me. Mom, he choked out, his voice breaking. Please tell me it's not true. Please tell me she didn't say that to you. I tried to speak. I really did, but the lump in my throat wouldn't let the words through. I didn't want to hurt him. I didn't want to be the reason his heart was tearing in half. But silence was an answer on its own. His shoulders dropped as if the weight of the world had settled on him. Oh God, he ran a hand through his hair, pacing back and forth. I knew she could be cruel, but to you, on our wedding day. Behind us, more guests spilled out of the chapel, some confused, some angry, some whispering loudly enough for the winter birds to hear. Did you hear what she said to the groom's mother? She humiliated her in front of everyone. What kind of bride tries to exile her own future family? And then Victoria appeared on the top step. A wreck, mascara streaked down her cheeks, veil crooked, lipstick smudged, sweat beading her forehead from the frenzy inside. She didn't look like a bride anymore. She looked like a tantrum personified. Daniel, she screeched again, her voice cracking. Come back inside. We are not doing this out here. You're embarrassing me. Her words echoed across the courtyard, bouncing off marble columns and silent trees. Daniel turned slowly, too slowly, and when he faced her, something inside him had hardened. Gone was the nervous, gentle man who had planned this day with his whole heart. Standing before her was someone who finally saw the truth. You embarrassed yourself, he said quietly, but his words carried like thunder. Victoria gaped. You're choosing asterisk or asterisk over your own wife. Daniel let out a humorless laugh. Wife, we're not married, and after what you did, we never will be. Victoria stumbled back a step. Then another, what are you talking about? Daniel, baby, please. I was stressed. I didn't mean it. I just wanted the wedding to be perfect. Perfect, Daniel repeated bitterly. You told my mother to leave because she didn't fit in. You humiliated her in front of others. You tried to shove her out of my life. He took a step toward her. "My mother raised me alone. She worked herself sick to give me a life. She's the most selfless woman I know. And you tried to erase her like she was trash." A collective gasp came from the crowd behind him. Victoria's lower lip trembled. I thought you'd be happier without her being so. So, say it," Daniel snapped. "Go on, say what you called her." Victoria opened her mouth, but no sound came out, because she knew. She knew she had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. "Daniel, please," she begged, dropping her voice. "Don't do this. Not in front of everyone. You're humiliating me." Daniel stared at her with cold clarity. "You humiliated yourself," he said. Victoria's knees buckled as she sank onto the step, sobbing into her hands. But Daniel didn't go to her. He turned back to me. "Mom," he whispered, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." I cupped his cheek gently. "Daniel, I never wanted this. I didn't want to ruin your day." "You didn't ruin anything," he said firmly. "She did that herself." His voice cracked. "I should have listened when you tried to warn me. I thought love meant ignoring the red flags, but all I did was blind myself." I shook my head. "You were hopeful. There's no shame in that." Then something remarkable happened. Daniel took a deep breath and stood up straight. "I'm leaving," he said, loud enough for Victoria and everyone else to hear. "I won't marry someone who disrespects my family." Victoria wailed, "You can't leave me like this." But Daniel didn't respond. He didn't need to, because the truth had already been spoken. Lily came to his side, hugging him tightly. Daniel hugged her back, burying his face in her hair like he used to when he was little. My parents approached too, tears in their eyes. Mark and Jason, the loyal groomsmen, placed a hand on his shoulder, and surrounding us were dozens of people who had walked out with me, who stood up for me, who made it clear that love and respect were worth more than any fancy wedding. Victoria stayed on the steps, shaking, crying, calling out Daniel's name. But the world didn't revolve around her screams anymore. Daniel turned to me. "Let's go home," he said. So we did, together. #****. The sweet revenge, ****, revenge, didn't come from shouting, or confrontation, or getting even. It came quietly, naturally, organically. Victoria's humiliation spread not because we exposed her, but because she exposed herself. Within hours, guests were posting online about what happened. Within days, gossip circles retold the story with fire and accuracy. Within weeks, Victoria Sterling, the wealthy girl with the perfect facade, was known everywhere as ****, the bride who kicked out the groom's mother. ****, her family tried to spin the story. Her friends tried to defend her, but the truth was too loud to silence. Daniel, meanwhile, moved back home temporarily. We cooked dinners together, talked for hours, cried when we needed to, healed piece by piece. One night, as we sat on the couch watching an old movie, he leaned his head on my shoulder and whispered, "Mom, you didn't just save yourself, you saved me." And in that moment, I realized something important. The sweetest revenge was not seeing Victoria suffer. It was watching my son wake up from a nightmare. It was seeing him understand his worth. It was seeing him choose love over pride, family over appearances, truth over performance. The sweetness was not in her downfall, but in our rise.